afternoon, everyone. We're here today. I'm going to be interviewing Justice Paul Anderson of Eden Prairie, and I want to call you Sir Sever Peterson. I'll give you a title. Very important people from our community. They're still with us, and we want to get them on tape, and we want to hear about their stories, about their friendship, and all of their years that they've known each other. Graduated from high school, from being starting out as a farm boy in Eden Prairie, but a lot of different stories to share with us. And we're going to start right away. Paul, why don't you just say a couple things really quick about yourself?
I'll try to be quick because
Okay.
You've done the previous interview.
All right.
I'm an Eden Prairie native, born in 1943. My ancestors settled here in the 1850s. And so I grew up dairy farm, and went to Eden Prairie High School. Well, started at the old school and all the way through high school. And so my roots are pretty deep out here. My parents are Helen and Calvin Anderson. My mother wrote this book of history of Eden Prairie. So I enjoy the fact that I can come here and share some history with you.
It's wonderful. His mother, Helen Holden Anderson, founded the Eden Prairie Historical Society in 1969. I'm very grateful she put me on the board in 1989, and I was very grateful and very happy to be with her.
Can I pander to you a bit? My mother was so pleased that she had contact with you and could turn over the Historical Society to someone like you. She adored you, by the way. And so she was very grateful. So on her behalf, if she were here, she would thank you for what you've done.
She was very, very kind. Wrote me letters continuously until she died about our history. So very honored. All right, Sever Peterson.
I too was born here in Eden Prairie. My dad was of Swedish descent. My mother was third generation. My mother was third generation German descent here in the United States, and they met here in Eden Prairie. I also, as Paul mentioned, attended school here. It was a consolidated school at that time, as well as it was for Paul. The Eden Prairie grade school, elementary school, middle school, and high school. We didn't call anything middle school at that time. It was either elementary or high school. And my first year, which would have been Paul's second year, Paul was a year ahead of me, the high school was in a different part of the school. Prior to that,
Same school.
All in one building,
That
same
old
school.
brick building up there.
That's correct. That's what now is the administration building.
The lower grades are on one end, and the higher grades I don't know how they handled it on the other end because we never went there, did we? I don't remember going there as a kid. Kathie, I forgot to mention that my ancestors in Eden Prairie were Scotch-Irish, came from Northern Ireland, and that's why, I mean, their contact was way back to John Knox and the Presbyterian tradition, so they established the Presbyterian church here. Now, they outgrew the old church on County Road 1, so they built a new one, which actually is where the old Best Buy was. But they dedicated it in 1958, May. And the parking lot was a farm field, and it was muddy, and it had rained. And so we needed to get gravel. And your father, you guys had trucks, you know? Did you have trucks or one truck?
We got a couple trucks.
Yeah, I mean, I remember their yard having all this equipment in it. But he volunteered his truck to help us haul in gravel. Where did you pick it up?
Picked it up at Sam Glenn's
gravel pit.
Up at Sam Glenn's, which is his daughter was Dorothy Dowdy.
Yeah. So my first remembrance of Sever is, you must have been 13.
I was.
Driving your dad's truck, hauling gravel for the church dedication. And I only remember you from about here up because you barely stuck up above the door, but you were driving the truck. That's my first memory of you.
Well, my first memory of Paul was actually from school. And I had a classmate, it was Homer and Lois Regay's adopted son. Clarence was his name. And Clarence loved basketball. And I should say that Paul was from a class of 35 students.
30. Well, maybe it started at 35.
Well, I don't know what it was in your first grade. Second grade, it was 35. Because we were a class of 7 boys and 13 girls. So we only had 7 boys. But Paul also had some wonderful other athletes in his class. I mean, it was Doug Larson, and there was Alan Yorth, and Leon Nesbitt, and there were many, Denny Nesbitt, and Skronkas. But Clarence was very competitive. And if anybody was shorter than I am, it was Clarence. But
Yes.
we were both pretty short. But at recess time, Clarence would always love to play basketball against Paul Anderson's class. And it became very competitive. I don't think we ever beat him, ever. I'm not even sure we even came close to beating them, but it was competitive. But I didn't realize at that time that they had probably 3 times as many boys in their class. Not that it mattered. It was still the class above us. We should be able to be competitive, but we barely were competitive. But that's how I remember Paul Anderson. And I can't say that started his basketball prowess, but he became very, very good at basketball.
So this is very interesting. I don't remember that. You know, is that we were older then. These are these young kids. You pay attention to the Ronnie and Dale Halasics and Berg Garrisons and those older than you, but not those younger. But we also, I can remember, you played football, right?
Did.
I mean, Kurt Connolly needed every warm body he could find when he started football, okay? And I was basically a warm body. I didn't like contact, but I played, but Sever was on the team. What did you play?
I played middle guard on defense.
I played right halfback, which basically you just blocked. You didn't carry the ball. Leon was the quarterback. And so that's where I got to know Sever is 9th grade, actually. When they even had 8th. They were so desperate they had 8th graders on.
How fun.
Yeah. So that's kind of when it goes back. And of course, when I got to be a junior and senior, and Sever got older, we interacted. You had a lovely sister, didn't you?
I had 3 sisters, and 2 of them were, that close enough on our age that the boys noticed them. That's right. The other one was younger that I wouldn't have known the boys noticing her.
See, you wouldn't notice the boys, but you notice the younger girls.
Yeah.
Okay, how about prom? Were you guys royalty? Did you go to prom? Did you dance?
I was royalty my 7th grade year. After that, I wasn't the social person that I am now.
That's an understatement.
Yeah, I kind of recall your mother having somebody come and teach you and your friends how to dance.
Oh yeah, we had dancing lessons. Burton Bates was there, Russell Marsh, Susan Wood, and Nesbitt, and I dropped it until I married my wife, and she I said she'd play tennis with me and I'd dance with her, but she was, I'm going to pause here. My mother it wasn't the happiest time, her early years in Eden Prairie. My mother came from a family that focused on books. We always had magazines and books in the house, whatever. Especially my Uncle Ken. He had a bit of an inferiority complex with respect to my dad. And he didn't treat my mother very well. And so, but she found some kindred spirits. Mildred Grill. She was an educated person, by the way. And so my mother used to ride our horse Dixie and ride it up to the mill and say, oh God, the Miller name, the matriarch of the Miller family.
Kate Miller?
But Kate, she adored Kate. She was quite, and so she would spend some time with Kate, and then she'd go over and meet with Mildred Grill. But she had to search out people who were kind of kindred spirits.
People that were educated, like she was. Yeah.
See, it was biased back then. My mother's sisters gave her a real hard time because she married a farmer, and that was beneath her. Her dad was a builder, an architect, and whatever, and so, but my parents came to love each other a lot, and later in life, I mean, they were like that in Mr. and Mrs. Eden Prairie, but it wasn't easy to begin with.
You had beautiful land
Yeah.
where your farm was.
Well, we're on the hill. Two things about that hill. My grandpa says we're on the hill, so we'll keep the riffraff off. They won't want to climb the hill up to the... He said that, actually. And then the highway department wanted the hill for the Highway 212 to fill in the lowland on either side. But the soil wasn't good. What was the soil like on your farm?
Well, the river bottoms was very fertile and was flat and heavy ground, but it was mixed. It was alluvial, of course, but out of the river bottom was quite sandy down where we were. Yeah.
Did you get flooded out?
In the 1950s, in our youth, no, it didn't flood often. Maybe a spring flood every 5 years, depending on the snowpack, how it melted, how fast it melted, the amount of rain with it. We would have a spring flood. And because there was no ditching and tiling at that time, or virtually no ditching and tiling. And as opposed to now where we can have 2 or 3 floods in the valley in a year. And it's a matter that Minnesota has to give more attention to so that we take care of the valley and the repercussions of this flooding.
You know, it's this very special land that he has there. Jim Klobuchar wrote an article once about the blackbirds who used to fly upside down over Sever's, so they wouldn't soil his crops at all. I'm not sure I ever saw them flying upside down over your fields, but...
Oh, dear Jim Klobuchar, yes, he had fun with that. But it was over this, they only did it over our sweet corn fields, lest they,
particular blackbirds, right?
Yeah, and the blackbirds could discern apparently field corn from sweet corn, and they'd fly upside down over the sweet corn areas.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, and he wrote an article
I thought
about that.
you were joking.
No.
But they really did.
Oh, he really did.
Oh, no, he wrote an article. I don't know. How did Klobuchar, that's Amy's father, you know. How did she find out about you?
Excuse me?
How did Jim Klobuchar find out?
Well, I think it was through, at that time, it was, we were exclusive suppliers of Hoves, which then became Lund's. And it may have come through their advertising department, I'm not sure.
So, we were dairy farmers. We had a herd of about 90, we milked about 45. And when I reflect about it, that was hard work. I mean, we worked hard, but every morning, every night, you had to milk those cows, but it was a good, stable living because you had that milk check coming in every month, And how about you? How did you make your money?
Well, we had as many, and most farms in those days had. We had livestock, we had hogs, we had cattle, beef cattle. We didn't have dairy cows, but we milked 2 cows for my mom to make cheese and milk for the house and cream and so on. But then we had corn and soybeans as crops. Soybeans came in our lifetime, your lifetime and mine. Soybeans started. And but my dad, because of the river valley and the depression years, along with the drought years that were really problematic for farmers throughout the United States, they started.
Can I pause it? Idlewild Lake near that dried up. They farmed that lake bed during the drought.
I heard it was called Tobias Lake at one time.
Was it?
Yeah. The Tobias family had a farm right there.
Well, the Tobiases
by the water tower.
Tobiases, among other things, were berry farmers, and they had an old history here in Eden Prairie. But because we also became vegetable farmers, and because my dad somehow understood and knew that if he would take vegetables to the iron range, the iron workers or the miners had some money, at least they had jobs, and they'd also take them, for whatever reason, to South Dakota. But, and I think that was out of extreme necessity for vegetables in South Dakota. at that time, because the drought in South Dakota at that time was really devastating.
But this is astounding to me. I mean, it's a long trip up to the Iron Range. It's a long trip to the Dakotas. I mean, how did you travel?
They traveled by trucks. You mentioned trucks earlier, and we had trucks on the farm, and many vegetable farms were called truck farms. And
Yeah.
I don't know why that is, but I think in those days, they had to truck it somewhere. I mean, they didn't sell it in their neighborhood.
Right.
You know, they needed a bigger, but your mom's book there, Eden Prairie History, talks about many people in Eden Prairie going and being involved, Elvin Bren.
Okay, now we get to the division in Eden Prairie. The Czech Bohemians, you know, the Holosics, the Uherkas, the Pikas, you know, the Czech Bohemians who were in the northern part of the prairie, and then the elite dairy farmers in the center area. And I used to have great conversations with Albert Pica about this. You know, Albert married a central Eden Prairie woman, Abby Tuckey. Oh, and that was a big deal among the...
That family.
Yes, there was a division. What in the world was this pretty little Abby Tuckey marrying one of those Czech Bohemians?
She crossed the railroad tracks.
Yes, she did. And I would talk, in this conversation, I said, Albert, he said, you know, there is a little tension between, and I remember how the Scotch-Irish Presbyterians, they were Presbyterian, they had roots to John Huss. He said, how would they respond to you marrying Abby Pica? Oh, he said they gave me a hard time. So what did you think of those dairy farmers from Central Eden Prairie? Oh, we didn't think they worked very hard. You know, we were truck farmers, berry farmers. We had to work on our hands and knees and right with the soil, and the dairy farmers, you just didn't have to work that hard. That was how we're talking about that.
But I always heard there was a lot of romance in the fields. Young people in high school falling in love with each other, working in the fields together, picking the
Oh.
berries.
Berries, in the
Yeah.
berries, in
In
the
the
berry
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 farms.
fields. And the
Yeah.
berry,
That's
yes.
how a lot of young people got
Yeah.
money to go to college.
Interesting.
Oh yes, that's how my sister earned money, and there are others that picking berries. And you know, they didn't make a lot of money, but back then, as a little money meant a lot.
Right.
It meant a lot, it meant a lot.
So question of your parents, about your parents. What did they do when they were raising you that formulated who you became? Did they? Do you feel like a lot of who you became, your success, was from your mother and father, one of them, or
You
feel
know
more
that
independent?
I served for over 2 decades on the high courts in Minnesota, and I learned something very important then, is that the best thing that you can have starting out in life is good parents. I had very good parents. My mom was an intellectual. We always had reading material in the house. She was always involved with that. And my dad didn't read as much, but he was smart, and he was personable, and he was part of the community. I mean, you know, I was shy in high school. God, I would.
That's an understatement, Paul Anderson.
I mean, I hated. I mean, I didn't. I dated, but I was. But when I got on the court, I'm a very open, gregarious person, and that comes from my father. My father never met anybody he didn't like, and I'll get into that a little bit later. I mean, he even went up and had a beer with the Catholics in Chanhassen maybe 2-3 times a year. Mary Ellen and I thought he'd go to hell because but he enjoyed them, and that played a role later in life. But they set a standard. I mean, I had to achieve in school. Not everybody, you know, I got picked on because I was, you know, a student. And I hated it when report cards came out. And in the locker room, whatever, they would give me a hard time about, you know, I'd get good grades. But I was chastised for that because I was different. But the point is, it was a standard set by my parents. And I'm going to say, my dad never wanted to be a farmer, actually. he kind of got locked into it. His dad was 50 when he got married, and he promised my mother that he would leave the farm shortly when my grandpa died. Well, my grandpa lived till 96, and so but I knew I didn't want to become. And my dad, unlike my Uncle Ken, who really kind of worked my cousins pretty hard. I worked hard, very hard, but my dad didn't abuse me on the farm. I didn't have to get up and milk the cows before going to school. And when I was playing basketball, no chores when I came home. I once put a fork through my hand and said, "You don't work on a game day." But they were considering. And at age 14, I told my dad that I didn't want to be a farmer. He supported that. He said I wanted to be a lawyer. I don't know where that came from, but always support, and clearly you were going to get to college and get a higher education.
Kathie, you asked about our memories of meeting one another. Coming back to Paul and my memories of Paul, I don't remember meeting Paul, but I do remember playing basketball with him, as I mentioned, at recess time, but really playing basketball with your grade, because they were all good basketball players in your grade, and we had a couple good ones. Burton Beggs and Clarence were both very good, but I also remember Paul Anderson, even though I didn't really know him except as a basketball player in recess, that he had to study in a way that the rest of us did. Not just that he had to, he seemed to enjoy it. And we didn't have the word nerd at that time, and I don't know that it would have applied. But he was also very shy young man, very shy, painfully shy. I mean,
well, not painfully shy, but I mean, why don't we stop with shy, you know?
I think he overcame that.
Yeah. Well, I can't believe how he's overcome that. That's true. And I can only applaud Jan, his wife, because good for her. But, and even in college, he was still very, very studious, very studious. And I mean, we had a real tough political science instructor at McAllister, and I attended McAllister as Paul did. He was a year ahead of me there as well. I was a year behind him.
I didn't know that.
But we had a political science class together, and I remember Dr. Metow and how fond, and he was a real strict professor. I mean, he was one that, he said the first day, "You get in those stacks and it's you and that book, and you study." And it wasn't just after classes. I mean, it was before classes, it was weekends, and he made it sound like it was 36 hours a day. That's how strict he was. But he
wasn't that bad.
But he was very, very, he was over the top fond or impressed with Paul Anderson's interest and acumen in political science, and having to do with probably his career.
So you have that in common, where your parents really felt strongly about education.
Oh, yes,
and continuing
absolutely.
and helping you both, even though you grew up on a farm. You might have been a farmer, but they wanted you to also be educated. And I feel like you did that with your kids as well.
Yeah.
You offered them education, but to continue the family business, and get that education to.
So you
promote
stayed
that.
in farming, Phil?
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
I stayed in farming. But we talk about, both of you touched on something very important, and that was reading materials.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember getting encyclopedias at home. And I was in the 5th grade when we got our encyclopedias. There was Mrs. Urkala, and I'm not sure that she wasn't a salesperson for encyclopedia. But we got this, and my dad read a lot. My mother loved to read. And my dad, I'll say, enjoyed to read, but I think he felt that he was getting information. For my mother, it was the love of reading, I would say. But, and I don't say that my sisters and I read all that much growing up. I was not a student anywhere in the league of Paul Anderson. But nobody in our school was in the league of Paul Anderson, except maybe his sister, Mary Ellen, and a few others that I really, just hadn't noticed. But
I'm going to pause here. How important it was that you were in a household that read.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, you saw that.
Mm-hmm.
You absorbed that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Very much so.
So
Any teachers
Oh,
that
that's the
stand out to
transition
you,
to-
that anybody that really helped you along the way in school, or meant
We
something
had
to
pretty
you,
decent
or,
teachers.
or ones that didn't.
Well, you know, Paul, we both had the same first grade teacher, not at the same
Mrs.
time.
Rogers?
Mrs.
She
Rogers.
was tough but good.
She was tough but good. And that was our first, neither one of us, there was no kindergarten in our era. And so first grade was it. And I can remember in first grade learning my colors. I mean, now, my grandkids at 3 years old know their colors.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
You know, because of Sesame Street and so on. I remember learning colors. So it was a challenge for these teachers.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't start with any background foundation. They started where they had to teach us. And Mrs. Rogers, absolutely, she was good. But another teacher that was outstanding for me was our fifth grade teacher. Did you have Mrs. Urkula?
I really, really liked her.
I agree.
I mean, now, you couldn't help fall in love with her, really.
I agree with that as well.
I mean, she was very good looking and very personable, and,
Your description's right on.
Cute.
but she really pushed us but she made learning fun.
Absolutely.
I mean, and that was, so Mrs. Urkula, did you have
Can I add
Simons?
something to Mrs. Urkula? There was one thing also she gave us, and that was some conversational understanding and knowledge. And I can remember in her class, when we'd have show and tell, we were not allowed to say, in our sentences. And when somebody said that, everybody's hand would go up. Okay, that was to let you know that's not how you spoke. And that was incorrect. And it was not appropriate. That was just another thing that Mrs. Urkula added to the mix. But she was a wonderful teacher, I felt, for at least me in Eden Prairie. I was
That was
impressed with her.
probably my most fun grade school year. Because
Interesting.
she made it, she was, and you couldn't help but adore her for,
Well, I was so impressed with her ability to teach that I almost overlooked all of these other attributes. But after fifth grade, we came to another teacher in common. That was our sixth grade teacher. And that was Mrs. Mabel Simons.
yes.
And Mrs. Mabel Simons was almost I'll say, the age opposite of Mrs. Urkula.
And a more of a staid, prim and proper personality.
Yeah, and a wonderful teacher as well.
yeah.
I mean, we learned the Morse code in school.
Wow,
Yeah.
that is interesting.
I mean, but before leaving that, for some unknown reasons, Eden Prairie had some good teachers to start out with. We should probably move on to high school.
Go ahead.
Well, let's see.
Not without saluting one other thing about Miss Simons. We learned a bit of prose, poetry, I believe it was.
Yes.
And Barbara Fritchie. Did you learn Barbara Fritchie?
I can't remember that.
Well, it was a very patriotic poem. Up rose old Barbara Fritchie, then bowed with her 80 years and 10. And it was a beautiful poem, but Mrs. Simons was, she wanted to instill in us patriotism, I believe, and she
Yeah.
did a nice job.
What was interesting about Mrs. Simons, the English teaching in high school was weak, but she started us thinking about literature and writing, and so I'm going to throw some names out for high school. Connie Engstrom, Kurt Conady, Mrs. Wanick, I mean,
Miss Nye.
Dottie Nye. I suppose we referred to her as a spinster then, but she never married. But
We have her painting up there on the wall.
yeah,
She
but
painted.
she was again, hold us to the, feet to the fire, at us work. But
Absolutely.
she was noted for, if you were talking or not paying attention, she would walk around the room with a ruler in her hand. And if you were not paying attention, your fingers would get slapped by that ruler from Dottie and I.
I haven't heard that about her before, that's funny.
I fortunately didn't have that experience, but we
I
considered
don't know
her
as
to
I
be
did, but I remember that there was always a threat hanging over us. But again, she was a very interesting person.
Absolutely. Very interested in the out of doors,
Yes.
in the environment, particularly birding. It was wonderful. If you'd come to school and ask her about a bird that you saw that morning or heard, I tell you really engaged her. It was wonderful.
So as you were on the road up to the school, just before you start going up the hill, there's an apartment complex of maybe about 8.
Pitcocks.
That's where
Yeah.
she lived. She had an apartment there, single woman.
Yeah.
And if you were not a student, you were worried about her because she valued academic achievement.
Yes, she did.
And see, my older cousins were not as academically oriented as I was. And so she approached Mary Ellen and me with a bias, figured that we were similar. But we won her over ultimately.
Well, I would say in the defense of his older cousins, they had to be in the barn milking every morning and every night.
God, and I mean, and some days, is that you take the barn smell with you to school. I mean, you didn't have a chance to get it. So, I mean, I adore my cousin. My cousin Tom. He's very much like my dad, open, gregarious personality. But they had to work harder as they were growing up than I did. And I'm very grateful to my father for that. So, who are other teachers that you remember?
Well, we covered our elementary school. Now we got into the high school, and we mentioned some of Mr. Buxrud. I enjoyed Mr. Buxrud in science. And
he was a personality, wasn't he?
He was.
Yeah. A fire plug
Yeah,
of a
and
guy.
Mr. McShane in English. I enjoyed him.
I had him for 1 year, senior year. Okay. I thought I was a good student. Okay. And I always got good grades, whatever. My first paper for McShane, I got an A on content, C- on style.
Oh, boy.
Oh, I mean, that was devastating. But I am so grateful for him instilling some standards. And he, in literature too. I can remember reading Shakespeare in his class. And, he was a Korean War veteran. He saw some tough service in the Korean War. He would talk to us about it a little bit, but a very good teacher. Connie Engstrom was very smart on math.
Very. It was almost difficult for him, I think, to bring it down to our level, at least to my level, which was so low. But he was excellent. Another one that comes to mind would be Miss Sinclair in home ec. But one in particular helped me out. She came and she started Girls Recreation Association.
That's McIntyre.
Dorothy McIntyre.
She went on to leadership statewide.
She certainly
Yes.
did. She
She's
really
one
was a
letter
vanguard for girls' athletics in the state of Minnesota and maybe in the country.
Yes.
She certainly was.
I have a question for you guys. I grew up in Bloomington, and my mother.
They were elitists over there.
My mother-
Lake Conference, they looked down on us. And
Well, this is my question. So my mom graduated in 1956, and her class was so large at their old school that they had in Bloomington, the old Bloomington Annex, they called it. Her class was so large they had to divide. You either went in the morning or went in the afternoon
Really?
your senior year. So when you guys are surrounded
Can
by...
I pause you there?
Sure.
At that time, the average age in Bloomington, I remember this, was 19 and a half.
Oh.
I mean, they were just kids
Exploding that
all
community.
over.
Yeah.
So that's why the school was just expanding, because you had so many young people there.
Right.
I'm interested in your direction.
So you've got, Shakopee has a big school, Hopkins has a big school, Bloomington has a big school, and you're just this little cute, in your little 1924 school, which I I love that. I would have loved to have gone there at that time. But how did it feel when you were in Eden Prairie, surrounded by, and it was like this forever until I came to Eden Prairie. It was still very much a farm community when I moved here too. So how did it feel growing up knowing that all these big schools were all around you?
Inferiority complex.
Well, did it feel good to be who you were? Like you had your own identity, you know, with a smaller size school and closer friends and smaller classes and...
I'll start here saying, okay, you ask Sever about my basketball prowess and whatever, he'll go on and on how good I was. Okay, I wasn't that good.
He was.
No, I wasn't that good. But if I hadn't gone to Eden Prairie, I wouldn't have had the athletic experience that I had. See, you know, they needed warm bodies to play.
Well, you were far beyond, and your teammates also beyond warm bodies. But I'm going to jump.
But I
in
had
for a
the
moment.
opportunity because there wasn't that competition.
Yeah. And
I would
never-
not have
Makes
done
sense.
that in Hopkins or Wilmington.
And Paul, with his humbleness, has maybe used the word inferiority complex. I was not wise enough or informed enough to even think about whether we were better or lesser. But I certainly didn't feel lesser to any of them. Well, Paul's team was co-champions in conference in basketball. But we can attribute that a lot to the coach we had at that time, which was Conley Engstrom, who was extraordinary.
Yes.
He was extraordinary. But you know, we were surrounded by, if we talked about athletics, and we didn't have many sports. We had football, which just started in our era, as Paul had mentioned.
Basketball was the sport.
Yeah, basketball and baseball. But I remember in my younger youth, Eden Prairie was very competitive, probably because of Mr. Kathie and other athletes in Eden Prairie, the Simonses and Halasics and so on, and Cormelos, but that we were beating Hopkins, we beat Bloomington.
We played above our weight level.
There you go.
And in your era, we almost beat Bloomington as well, but they went on and won the state.
Yeah.
But I thought as a spectator, we were as competitive as we could be. And we were competitive above, I'm going to say, what we had.
And you were proud of
But you
where you
guys
were.
stepped up for it.
Proud of
So
your
I'm going to
school.
go back to this kind of inferiority thing. We had the 4-H club out here. Wardelosik. So you integrated the northern Eden Prairie and southern. Northern Eden Prairie went to Hopkins. There's no way. I mean, you remember Penny Bren.
Oh, for sure do.
Oh.
She was with us at McAllister.
I know, but I wouldn't dare ask someone like Penny Bren.
You were way too shy.
Well, but she was Hopkins, you know,
And gorgeous.
and gorgeous. Oh, Penny was just. But I mean, you know, that's kind of. I mean, when I went to meetings, I used to wipe the side of my shoes to make sure I didn't bring any manure into the meetings and that. But let's talk for a minute about Kurt Comedy. Did you know he taught biology?
I didn't know that. I thought it was only mathematics.
Or industrial arts?
I didn't know that either.
Yeah. But when he first came, he taught biology. And one of the best courses I ever had at McAllister was as a sophomore and had Kurt Conady for... Are
you saying Kurt Conady or Conley Engstrom? You said Kurt Conady.
Kurt Conady
Okay.
taught me...
I knew he taught industrial arts. I had him for industrial arts, shop. I couldn't wait to have him for shop. And but I didn't know he taught biology. I didn't have him for biology. I had Mr. Buckshire.
Okay. But, you know, Kurt Conady was questionable when he would come here. Okay. He graduated and was just recently married to Mary. Okay. Graduated of a known estate. Catholics.
Yes.
Catholics. In this kind of Protestant-oriented, I don't think there was a Catholic on the school board at all. But they wanted to teach in the same school. And it was a big deal. The board didn't want to hire them. because one, they're Catholic, and my God, did you hire two Catholics? Oh, here's, as I said, my dad used to have a beer with the Catholics up in Chanhassen every once in a while. And my dad carried the weight for Kurt Conady to hire him for the school. And I think about that. I mean, they are such pillars in Eden Prairie over the years. But that bias early, you know, religion, whatever, they almost didn't get hired.
I didn't know about this, but I knew we all loved both of them. She became a first grade teacher. He became a shop teacher and a biology teacher, as you mentioned. And
Very good. Very
Yeah.
good.
yeah.
Ninth grade, I made a rocking horse in industrial.
In shop.
In shop. And I kept that. I just recently gave it to a former law clerk of mine on the Supreme Court. She has a 15-month-old child. And as we moved, we don't have a little store. And I'd show you that picture. But I'm very sensitive about posting images of people, you know, or the mother's the judge on the Court of Appeals. But here, I mean, all these years,
You've had
I gave that rocking horse to the judge on the Court of Appeals.
You know, on this topic, I want to come back to your question about Eden Prairie being small amongst our neighbors. In my first grade, which was 1950, when I started, and I finished actually in 51, so I mean, it didn't take me 2 years. But it felt like it. But we had 4 bus drivers. We had 4 bus routes. 2 of those bus drivers, one of which was our superintendent, was a bus driver.
Yeah.
Another one was the band music instructor, a bus driver. And, you know, they are in their shirts and their ties.
And then there was Joe Shidlow, right?
Yeah, Joe Shidlow and George Moran.
George Moran.
And both of whom were custodians at Eden Prairie and kept coal, and so we had warmth at the school. And,
Right.
But, you know, it was a team of 4. I mean, unbelievable what they accomplished, those 2 janitors and so on. But
Was your bus ride long?
well, we went from the west side of Eden Prairie to the east side of Eden Prairie, and we didn't go north of Highway 5.
Okay.
We never went north of Highway 5.
It's amazing how you witness people performing different duties, you know, from you know, bus driving to being a principal. That really had to teach you a lot. You know?
We thought
Well,
that's
it
the
was
way
a
it was.
community.
But it was a community, and you all chipped in. You all did what needed to be done. I wanted to add one thing. Dave Pavelka one time came
By the
to
way,
our
Dave
society.
Pavelka is a pretty smart guy.
Oh, very. Went to Brown.
Yes, Dave was really bright. And he was loose jointed when he played basketball. Enthusiastically loose jointed. I can still remember Dave Pavelka going down, all arms and legs going
I
down.
thought that was Leon.
No, Leon was much more coordinated than Dave
But
Pavelka.
Dave shared with we had him speak at an annual meeting one time, and he said the happiest part of his day in school was the bus ride. He said he'd look out the window and he just fell so in love with where he grew up because he passed farm after farm after farm, and every farm had the barn, the horses, the cattle, in a beautiful, beautiful valley, winding roads and up and down hills and lakes and the river. And he said he just fell so in love with where he grew up. And he did. He lived here till he died.
Wow.
You know, he recently passed. And,
Indulge me for a bit here.
okay.
I want to correct an ill that's been on my mind for a very, very long time, okay?
70 years.
Almost 70 years. 8th grade civics class. We were supposed to, Mr. Nelson was the teacher, and he wasn't all that good a teacher, and he was kind of, well, I won't go into it too much. But for me, my household, I mean, we had the paper coming in the house, we had Life magazine, U.S. News, it was easy for me to find a current events article to bring to school. Bev's household didn't have that. They didn't have that reading. And so I can remember it was a challenge for her to find an article to bring in for current events. This was the second week of February. 1959. Nelson called on Bev Costello. She had this small little article. And it reported on a airplane crash that happened in northern Iowa. Okay? There were some musicians on that airplane that went down. I can remember Mr. Nelson being exceedingly cool to Bev, saying this is inappropriate, can't you do better? I mean, it was mean. I mean here I'm, all this time later I can remember it, okay? And saying that you just don't bring in articles like that for current events. I have no idea about any of the articles that were brought in for current events, except that one by Bev Costello. Because she brought in an article that described the day the music died. Plane crash that killed Buddy Holly, the Big Bopper. And so she was spot on.
Yeah, she
but
was.
Nelson he was not a nice person. And I won't get into it. He changed some people's grades to favor, the children of people he liked, and, to the detriment of others. So it wasn't all peaches and cream. There were some people that you had to overcome their shortcomings. But I hope Bev Costello can see this thing and know that here, all these years later, she has her classmate praising her for having brought in an article about the day the music died.
Well done.
Very, very good story.
I would say, one thing about the format we have here, and that is that we had Ernie Hone, we had George Boyd, we had Cal Anderson, Paul's father, among Harry Rogers.
Oh, yeah.
These were the men on the school board. And so Paul would naturally be quite sensitized to some things that, and maybe I can't say I ever paid attention like Paul did. And I just wasn't familiar with some of these, I'll say, behind the scenes situations and so on. But I hope that Bev gets to see this.
I hope she does too. I remember the attention the board would pay to buying a new school bus. Superior was a company, Bluebird was a company. I mean, my dad pored over those bids to see.
Never even thought about it.
So interesting.
Yes.
And that did formulate who you became.
Yeah,
It's the way you were
and I can remember okay, we started in that old brick building, right?
Yes, right.
And
The administration building now, that's right. At school, we're talking school.
I think they built the sheep shed when I was I think 5th grade.
No. It started already, it was being built in my 1st grade.
Really?
And it maybe started in your 1st grade, but it was done for 2nd grade for you. It was, well, maybe not. It was done for 2nd grade for me.
Yeah.
It was done.
But that provided the
High school.
expansion. And then the extension to the west, I remember that was completed by the time I was a junior. Because they had a small gym over there, and sometimes we would practice. Oh, our small gym. You remember that?
I do.
It's a great gym. It's the best.
When the school was first online in 24, that was a premier gym. That was classy. God, it was small.
It's adorable.
I mean, the sidelines was about this wide. And, I mean, when you were sitting on the bench, with Kathie or Mr. Conley, I mean, your feet were out on the basketball court. And if you drove in with a layup, I mean...
You hit the wall.
You hit the wall. Or the stage. Yeah. I mean, finally, my cousin Tom remembers, they didn't have mats on the stage. He would hit the rough stage. When I was playing, they finally put some mats up. But they got the new high school when I was a senior. And they had that was a good, nice gym. The new one was spectacular.
Well, see, Al Pica felt like you did about the 1924 gym because he was playing basketball against Chaska, and he said they had a wood-burning stove on one end of the gym, and they had to be careful that the basketball didn't hit it or it could start a fire. And sparks would come flying out. So to him, that 1924 school was so amazing. And remember, they didn't have flushing toilets anywhere yet or electricity. So to go to school and take a shower.
They had electricity in the building when it went online.
Okay.
My father talked about the lights in that school building. It was, I mean, we have a lot of light pollution now,
Yeah.
but there were no electric lights on electricity. But that school had electricity, so it was a beacon
Yeah.
in the Prairie.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
and as I say, it was a uniting force.
Beautiful. All right, I've got 2 questions.
Only two?
2 left to ask you. We've actually been through quite a bit here.
By the way, Kathy, I gotta say how grateful both Sever and I are that you are here and are the catalyst for this discussion.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, but I also want to give credit. Can you get in the picture, Tom? Can we see you? Tom
Absolutely,
Achartz,
Tom
our
as well. Gifted,
fellow
gifted.
I like
historical
being
society
behind the
board
camera.
member, has been wonderful at filming all of these interviews.
He's the enforcer, isn't
He's the
he?
enforcer, and he's doing a great job back there, so.
And he also has talent.
Thank you, Tom,
Yeah.
and very talented. Okay, my last 2 questions, you can kind of mix them up if you want to. What do you miss about Old Eden Prairie? Your school days, your youth, what do you miss about it? And what has changed in Eden Prairie to make Eden Prairie better today, in your mind?
Ooh.
So what do you miss, and what do you think is a good thing that's going on today that you appreciate?
I miss, and it's maybe there, I moved away, so you've stayed, you're part of that cohesive community. My sister doesn't like current Eden Prairie. She misses being able to ride her horse any place. She had her trails and she would ride her horse all over, and she just has a real hard time with the commercial development. I mean, I don't have that problem. I think I see it just as inevitable. But we had a good community. I mean, there were some good people here. And the thing is that, yeah, I would imagine it's hard to know the broader community because there's so many people now. We know who people were. We know how. And we had some good role models. So that aspect of society, we miss that today. We really do miss that today.
Well, you knew everybody, basically.
Oh, yeah, and you know, is that, like Sever's dad, he hears that we're in trouble with the Presbyterian Church, and we need to haul some gravel. Without a second thought, he volunteers Sever in the truck to help us. I mean, that's the way it was. When my dad got sick for a short period of time, Loring Tucky, he took his Oliver tractor drove it all the way up from Eden Prairie by where Purgatory Creek crosses Highway number 1. Drove it up and to help Mom and us with chores because Dad was in the hospital overnight. I mean, they showed up. You know, Ralph Nesbitt, I mean, a little mixed bag there, but he was so dedicated to 4-H Club and to get the kids off to a good start. So I miss that community. It was a small town, but I miss that.
I got 2 questions for the table. Was B. Vaness a Tucky?
I think so.
I think so too, I'm not sure. And was Carol Hone a Quam?
I don't know.
She was
In your mother's
she
book,
was related to Robert Page, you know, the guy who invented the radar that was used.
and
in-
and he was so involved in that his
Oh,
whole
yeah.
career.
Oh yeah, he's got any number of awards.
We have a book.
What?
We have a book that he wrote. Isn't it Cal Page?
I'm not sure,
Your
but
mother addresses it in her
Yeah,
Eden
oh,
Prairie
yeah.
history book.
Yeah.
he, I mean, the family saw how bright he was, and actually sent him over to one of the southern Minneapolis schools for his higher schooling education. And you know, he was into radio waves and whatever, and he was out on the old, the Sound, the Chesapeake Bay, and they sent radio signals across the bay. And they noticed that when planes went by, they got interrupted. And they started to figure out why. And that's when they found out radio waves and radar could detect objects in the sky.
Interesting. You asked the question about Eden Prairie, and I would, back up Paul's memories. You know, we were a small community, as you've alluded to, and we all know.
3,000 in 1960.
And we started school in the beginning.
Yeah.
You started in 49. I started in 50. A decade, and a decade was quite a lot at that time. But and we talked about Dave Pavelka and his pleasure on the bus ride. Well, I too enjoyed the bus rides, and like Paul and like David, I rode the bus for 12 years. We didn't drive to school at that time. If you missed the bus, your folks might, if they could, would drive you, but if they couldn't, you had to walk to school.
Right.
But you knew everybody on the school bus, and it's a fond memory of mine that to think about my classmates particularly. I was with them for how many hours a day, and our school days were not short in those days, Eden Prairie. They were not short. But that was fine. It wasn't fine at the time with me, but that's how it was. But my schoolmates were like siblings. I mean, we were together for 12 years,
Right.
many hours. When I came home, my sisters and I, we all had chores on the farm.
Oh, yeah.
And we didn't see each other. In the summertime, not only did we not see our neighbors that often, we didn't see one another in the family because we were down in the river bottoms. And there weren't neighbors there. There was not somebody across the fence. It was us. And so we were isolated that way, but school was a real common denominator for me, and it was a wonderful
And for the
one.
community. For the community.
Yeah.
And basketball was a uniter.
Yeah.
But I would be remiss if I wouldn't talk about, especially when our years in high school, that was a transition period for Eden Prairie. People were moving out from the city who wanted a little bit of a more expensive scenic heights across from Fritz Alotsik's place, and then Steve Seymour. There was this development down there where the homes were.
On the southwest corner of
Sure.
Red Rock.
So there were some of these city people that were starting to move out, experience Eden Prairie. And they were kind of exotic for us. So there was a transition that we were part of from the time we were in grade school to the time that we were in the high school.
But, we accepted that so easily, because I remember the Cormelows moving into Eden Prairie, and how easily they assimilated. I remember
Well,
the
and they were
Rodericks.
good athletes, right?
Yeah, and the Rodericks, they were such neat people, and they were mixed. They were daughters and sons, and so
The
the whole class enjoyed, or the whole school enjoyed all of them. And we had something in common with all of them, because many of us had siblings in other grades in school. And that was an important part. I remember, my sister's girlfriends, both the two closest to me, younger, they were like family members.
Right.
Yeah.
And
like the Breckies,
yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
Mixed gender again, Bruce and Linda.
How
Yeah.
about today? What do you like today about Eden Prairie?
I like that you are doing a stellar role in preserving the history of this community. That's probably,
Thank you for that, but there has to be something better.
well, no, it's
Pretty important.
you don't know how important that is. I mean, hey, when my ancestors moved out here in the 1855, this was Indian country. I tell the story of the big Indian who would come to their cabin, the Indian uprising, and the log cabin, the transition, what it was like. My great-grandfather was the first to get a McCormick reaper, which allowed them to have more crops. Okay, and then the roads started coming in, and good roads meant that the milk could be transported every day. So then you could have a larger herd of cows. I mean, it's all of this. Oh, I got it before we go. And the getting together for thrashing. Did you have that?
We did.
You did?
Oh, yeah. And not on our farm, on my uncle's farm, on my godfather's farm, and I was part of that. That was in the southwest corner of Eden Prairie. Yeah.
See, my dad and 4 other farmers bought a thrashing machine. And that was a big community event to thrash. I mean, we would shock the grain, and the women would compete for who could put on the better.
Wonderful.
3 meals. It was 3 meals at each place. One was chicken, one was beef. I can't remember what the third was. We didn't have pork, but sometimes you'd have pork. And you'd come in and, you'd set up sawhorses with a board on it, pans to wash yourself and clean up. Oh, and when you went to Fritz Elastic's, he had a little concession stand at the lake there, and he would have a couple of milk cans full of pop. I abused that. But he would bring it up. But first you'd start out by driving tractor, then you'd pitch foam. And then the other one would be silo filling.
Be what?
Silo filling.
Silo filling.
Yeah.
We all had silos.
Feed for the cattle.
Okay.
Silage for the cattle.
And you got help from each other?
Oh yeah, we had 4 farmers had a chopper and.
The key is though that not one farmer owned the chopper, 4 of them would, because you couldn't afford that kind of equipment investment.
Okay, I don't know about you. I'm a kind of I don't say I'm a reckless person, but I always used to be in a bit of a hurry. I am glad I didn't go into farming because I might have lost a hand or a finger or something. I was not as careful as I should have been because there was a lot of danger working around the equipment we did.
A certain amount of it. And with cattle, like you do.
Oh, yeah.
But in your question, it's very difficult, I believe. I can't speak for Paul, but I can hear his words and I know his thinking about it. Eden Prairie was really special for us to grow up in, along with our schoolmates and neighbors in those days. David Pavelka says it so well. And, but I think of to go to a music program or a debate, an activity, and not just athletics, not just Eden Prairie is certainly very accomplished athletically, but so many other things have also developed, and it's wonderful to see that this generation has these opportunities in this community and in these schools. And that's very nice.
And you cannot overestimate the extent that the school was a unifying factor and force in the community. And we owe a debt to some of the newer teachers. We talked about McShane, okay? Stark, the music teacher. I mean, he raised it 2 or 3 notches from what we had before. So we got some of these really good people.
Absolutely. But another thing, and that is even our city government. It has grown and developed, and it's brought in a fabulous police department, an absolutely outstanding fire department. Both of these things are so essential to the community as it is today. I mean, we couldn't exist without them, and they're exceedingly excellent. And
I'm going to pause here. You mentioned, is that Gordon Clark, his son, became police chief. There was something Jim Clark. My dad just adored Jim. And of course, Jim knew my dad used to hunt pheasants, and he wasn't supposed to and all that, but he was police chief. But I couldn't leave without saying that part of Eden Prairie at that time were some World War II veterans. They never really talked that much about their service. Rule Long was taken prisoner. Again, the story of his sister, of how what it was terrible during the time that he was missing. And
Battle of the Bulge.
yeah, no, he had, his feet were bad. He had to escape. You know, well, there's some really good stories. But Jim's father, Gordon Clark, he was in the European theater. And we didn't know it at the time, but he was suffering from the malady of PSDD. He worked for my uncle, and he was there when they liberated the death camps. He saw that firsthand, and that left an impression. So many of these people brought with them life experience that formed who they were, but they didn't make a big deal.
Well, you did too. You were a medic in Vietnam.
I was.
Oh, I thought you were CIA.
You can't talk about that.
Thank you, Paul.
You know I couldn't get through this thing without throwing that out there. I mean,
He always blows my cover.
yeah, no, you weren't CIA. But I bet you there were some CIA people who talked to you, because you were a medic. Tell us that was a tough service, wasn't it?
Actually, it was an experience. It was a wonderful experience, but that's topic for another day.
Yeah.
That's topic for another day.
But we were patriotic. You know, we grew up, I can remember saluting the flag on Friday nights at the Friday night fights, but we were taught to love country and community. That was very important to us growing up.
I do think Eden Prairie, from the very beginning, from everything that I've learned over the years and read, it's always been diversified. You've always had people coming here from different countries. In the beginning, first you had the Native American, the Dakota Sioux were here first, and then you had people coming from England, from Ireland, from Sweden. I mean, you had all these different pioneers coming to Eden Prairie. Different religions, and Methodist and Presbyterian don't sound very far apart, or Catholic anymore, but they were back then, and there were prejudices, you know. But I think that from the very beginning, everybody seemed to have the team spirit. Let's live here, let's all get along, and let's be happy here together, and I think that still continues today.
We had some very open-minded people. My mother just adored Kate Miller, okay? And Monroe Barker, I think, had come up from the South, been born a slave, worked with the Millers, part of the Miller household, and tells the story of, there used to be the train station by Miller's store, and merchants used to come through, and a salesman was there and was invited to dinner. And Monroe Barker, member of the family, he sits down at the table and he says, "I will not eat at a table with a black man." You know what Kate Miller did? Picked up his plate.
I invited him to eat later.
No, put him over in a remote corner and said, "If you won't eat with my family, then you're going to eat over here." I mean, this was pretty open-minded back then. Yeah. And we had people like that out here.
Yeah, we did. We had people that cared about each other overall. And I think it still is today. I really do. I think we've learned how to live with all different, walks of faith and people that don't have faith. Or we've all learned how to work together and enjoy Eden Prairie.
So, as people are watching this, I hope they get the feeling, you and I really enjoy each other, don't we?
Oh.
I mean, come on. Yeah. We share a lot of memories, and
we do.
And
Eden Prairie memories.
Eden Prairie memories. But so that I hope they take that away about that bond that exists between us, sir.
Thank you.
I am privileged to have gone through this life with someone like you.
Thank you, Paul Anderson. I feel likewise. And I'm just delighted that our ancestors were part and I'll say fuel that respect.
And thank you to our parents.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We were lucky.
Yeah, you were very lucky.
Thank you.
Great parents. Thank you. You guys are wonderful. One last question. What keeps you in Minnesota? What made you stay in Eden Prairie? What made you go to St. Paul? What keeps you here?
The culture and the people. I mean, I've traveled the world. I've lectured 4 times in China, Russia, Czechoslovakia, whatever. And when I talk to people, they ask, you know, and it's so sad at this current time because the person in the White House is kind of trying to destroy our culture. But we have a very, very special culture. And when I would talk about Minnesota, it's kind of like what Garrison Peter said. Everybody's above average because we think we're above average, you know? But we have a culture that we appreciate and adore. And we're committed to each other, we're committed to a rule of law, we're committed to a civil society. So if you're asking what brings me back, and I've been, as you say, all over the world, it's that special aspect to our culture. You've been over the world. What about you?
Well, you use the word culture, and I absolutely agree. The culture of Minnesota, the culture of the Midwest, the culture of the United States is an important culture. I almost lament that I didn't study sociology in university because it's so interesting because of the word culture. And hopefully it's not destroyed. But it's had assaults in many times over our history. Culture has, and I believe that we will keep it. We need to keep it. We want to keep it, but we have to want to keep it, and we have to do something about that. But it's the culture of this area. The culture of Eden Prairie was wonderful, as we've talked about here for the last hour or more, and how special it was. And the culture is made up of the people that were involved, all of them. And I'm just grateful for that. As Paul has said, not only our families, of course our families, and we were fortunate with our families, but it's a culture that's so special.
So that's what my mother did with her book, and what you're doing, Kathie, is that you're keeping that history alive and teaching it so the young people can see what it's like. I mean, it takes work, hard work to maintain a civil society and a good culture. And you get tested. We're being tested right now. And, you know, we make mistakes. But you've got to keep doing what you're doing. Preserve for the future
A good
what we
board.
have.